When I travel, I prefer to bring an ultra-wide-angle lens rather than the standard zoom lens that most people use. This is because, as I am getting more experience in photography, I increasingly want to get closer to my subjects, so the final photos can give you a strong sense of being there in the scene. I initially bought the Canon RF15-30mm as an entry-level lens, a lightweight and travel-friendly choice. At the time, constant aperture ultra-wide zooms were extremely expensive and were not worth the money. Now the prices have dropped over time, I eventually decided to upgrade.
Since the price difference between the RF1435mm f4 and the RF1535mm f2.8 wasn't huge, Steve went straight for the f2.8 version.
This brought a dramatically different shooting experience. The most obvious change is the size and weight increase.
The 1530mm weighs 390 grams, while the 1535mm f2.8 weighs 840 grams. The weight difference is very noticeable. When Steve holds the Canon R6 Mark II with the 1535mm f2.8 single-handed,
I sometimes feel it straining and hard to keep steady.
In comparison, the 1530mm feels extremely lightweight and easy to carry. Actually, the RF1435mm f4 weighs around 540 grams, which is also a very portable option.
I think keeping the weight around 500 grams or so feels comfortable and not too burdensome.
The 1535mm f2.8 is quite bulky compared to ultra-wides from other brands.
It has built-in lens image stabilization, something Sony and Nikon ultra-wides lack.
Compared to Sony's 1635mm, it offers a wider 15mm end. Compared to Nikon's 1424mm, it has a longer 35mm end.
I believe these advantages contribute to its larger size.
So now, Steve is a bit regretful about jumping straight from the 1530mm to the 1535mm f2.8. From a weight and size perspective, Steve currently thinks the 1435mm f4 is the better choice. It isn't much heavier than the 1530mm, it has a constant aperture, and you even get an extra 1mm of ultra-wide coverage.
Of course, gaining portability always means giving up something else.
In terms of optical image quality, the 1535mm f2.8 is undoubtedly the best. On the 1435mm f4, at the ultra-wide end, before digital correction, the corners of the frame are black.
Meaning the lens doesn't fully cover the sensor. It requires heavy digital correction for the image to look normal.
With the 1535mm f2.8, the amount of digital correction needed is noticeably less. We can't do a direct one-to-one comparison, but you can search for reviews or videos from other creators about the 1435mm. The main issues with the entry-level 1530mm.
First, the aperture is too small. If you're shooting only in bright daylight, you won't notice much problem.
When the 1535mm f2.8 is stopped down, the image quality difference isn't huge. However, at the 30mm end, the 1530mm's maximum aperture is only f6.3. While the 1535mm at 35mm can deliver some nice bokeh at f2.8. Indoors, the difference is unquestionable. The 1535mm's f2.8 aperture wins completely. The 1530mm's tiny aperture forces higher ISO, which impacts image quality. That said, at the 15mm end, its aperture is f4.5, slightly smaller than f4, but still usable.
If your shooting is mainly at the wide end, you can treat it almost like a fixed focal lens.
Steve once owned the tiny RF 16mm f2.8 Prime as well.
It suffers from very heavy digital correction, no stabilization, and lacks zoom flexibility. I don't really recommend it, its only real advantage is being extremely compact.
The reason the 15-30mm and 15-35mm f2.8 may not show much difference at small apertures like f8 or f11 could also be because the camera body Steve is using is only 24 megapixel. So the 15-30mm is better suited to lower resolution bodies like the R8 or R6 series. For high-resolution cameras like the R5 Mark II, 45MP, you definitely need a larger, more expensive f2.8 lens to fully exploit the sensor's potential.
Autofocus performance differences aren't particularly obvious. For video shooting, weight becomes a very important factor.
The 15-30mm or 14-35mm would be better choices. The 15-35mm f2.8 can feel quite demanding on a gimbal. The 15-30mm is somehow quieter than 15-35 f2.8. If you are shooting in a very silent environment, you can hear 15-35 f2.8 making an obvious autofocus noise.
This noise will affect video recording. The reason might be that the lens module is too heavy.
In some extreme conditions, the 15-30mm can produce flare.
I remember it happening, but I already deleted those photos.
Also, regarding dust and weather sealing, the 15-35mm f2.8 has a rubber ring at the rear mount, while the 15-30mm does not. Moreover, Steve discovered a large dust particle inside the rear element of the 15-30mm at some point.
I have no idea when it got in.
Since upgrading to the 15-35mm, Steve rarely used the 15-30mm anymore.
So that dust is quite strange and shows how poor the dust protection is on Canon's entry-level lenses.
Overall, upgrading from the 15-30mm to the 15-35mm f2.8 gives huge improvements in every aspect except weight.
Also, ultra-wide lenses aren't super popular, so you can often find very good used copies on the second-hand market at much lower prices than new. That's it for this video, see you next time.
Sinking in, I know this feels right. Catching a breath.